The weather's so bad at that time, I figured it didn't matter. Besides, they're so enthusiastic. Girls should have a chance to enjoy camp. But some old-timers keep reminding me that this is the Young Men's Christian Association. I'm quite pleased with the new cook I've hired, Alfred David. Davey, as the boys call him, has turned out to be a favorite already. Camp added 4 new cabins this year and made new rules against tobacco, playing cards, unregulated swim times, and boating. And we inaugurated the Order of the Quest for older campers who spent a vigil on Nanton. There were 2 8-day canoe trips covering about 50 miles each. And yes, Flossie, our cow, continues to serve camp with cream for cereal and tea.
I'm Fred Hubbard. It's 1927 and I'm proud to succeed Nelson as director. But I told him of my disappointment of Flossie, the cow, has disappeared. We must now bring cream from Kenora. It often sours with the iced houses our only refrigeration. They tell me Flossie swam away last fall, but I doubt she could swim. There are rumors that of a fine banquet for staff at camp at that closing. We introduced new programs for the boys of campcraft, bird lore, camera club, fishing, basketry, sketching, knotting, and gymnastics, to name the most popular. 200 boys are registered this summer, a record. 3 canoes, a punt, and a sailboat were added to the camp fleet. 4 new cabins allowed us to discontinue use of the tents. And a local Ojibwe constructed an authentic birch bark canoe on the island.
Camp endured scarcities in the Depression, but directors H.T. Williams and S.T. Smith saw it through. Some staff actually volunteered to work for the summer. The Second World War began in 1939, and again, many young men from camp joined the military. From 1941 to 1945, Charlie Forsyth was camp director. I remember Charlie because he wrote to me every spring and made a donation to the campership fund, $100. He was scheduled to come to the 100th anniversary in 1991 at the age of 90. But he withdrew at the last minute and wrote a letter of apology because his wife felt he should be at their 65th wedding anniversary. Priorities. Charlie was succeeded by Gordon Hearn, D.D. Hills, and another old Y-man, Fred Hoffman. The war changed the world and camp. The program became much more responsive to the setting of Lake of the Woods. To traditional mass games, a greater interest in cabin-based activities arose. Camp Stevens stressed the wise tradition of development in spirit, mind, and body. But as boys came to camp from different faiths and non-religious traditions, the overtly Christian flavor began to wane. Counselor training became more sophisticated, focused on growth and broad-based development. Reverend Fred Douglas, some of you know Fred Douglas Lodge, was camp director in the early 1950s, and he stressed the motto, "I'm third," which arose out of the Christian maxim, to love your neighbor. Ross Bannerman and Alec and Bill Owen directed camp in the 50s. Bill Owen redeveloped the Indian lore program into a major camp theme, stressing the dignity of Aboriginal people and honoring them for their lore of the natural world. Starting with his time as a camper, Bill likely had the longest camp experience of anyone of any era, save perhaps Punch Jackson himself, as both worked their way to directorship. Both had profound impacts on all aspects of camp.
I'm Ron Watson, youth director at Central Y. After being a counselor and staff at Stevens in the 50s, the Y had enough faith in me to appoint me camp director. This year I've got some real characters on my staff, all of whom make for a great team. I don't know any anyone who isn't loved by his kids. This year we got everybody singing, and Hal revived the Indian lore program. We even got a new launch, the Canadiana, to replace the old Wiseman. Camp sure seems strange without Davy. Last year was his final year. I remember the phone call that announced his passing that winter. It marked the end of an era and a camp legend. His funeral saw men from the 20s to the 60s come to pay respects. If anyone was the perfect example of I'm third, it was Davy. But not all funerals are sad. This summer we had 6 straight days of rain, and we tried everything. We even celebrated Christmas with a tree and presents and carols. The rain kept on, so Hal and I decided to hold a wake and a funeral for Gertrude, the invisible elephant, the camp mascot. We sang songs, paraded around the island. I did a eulogy, and some of the juniors even cried. All camp gathered for her burial at sea in the front bay. Actually, what we tipped over the side of the Wiseman was a gray tarp-covered Hobart dishwasher that didn't work anymore. Camp always had a way to honor its many friends.
Doug McEwen and Punch Jackson succeeded me as camp directors and continued the evolution of Stevens. The 70s were years of many physical and great program changes at camp.
I'm Punch Jackson, and I began my long journey in association with Stevens in 1956. 2 of my mentors, Bill Owen and Ron Watson, for some unknown reason, decided that I should have a new name, and that name has stuck with me. After years on the trail with the Voyager program and a stint with Hal at Camp Manitou, my dream came true. And I followed Doug McEwen as camp director after his great facility and program rebuilding initiative that saw a new cabin line, new tripping center, and a whole new program framework. When I became camp director, I had a dream for a major expansion of camping programs inside and outside the Winnipeg Wild. With the support of Don Phelan and Uncle Hal, we created the camping branch. Our team, Brian Stubby Law, Jim King, Linda Tuck Macintosh, Larry Osman, John Macbeth, Alice Neville, Laurie Macintosh, and Bob Patterson put together a 6-element branch with Stevens, the Wilderness Program, outdoor education at Stevens and at Camp Manitou, Manitou Day Camp, a little under the table log cabin camping sales, and Wilderness 2. We wanted to be the best camping operation in the Canadian Wild, and we were. Our focus was on building relationships with campers, parents, the communities we served, staff, and colleagues outside the wild. We emphasized leadership development at all levels. Looking back, my biggest regret was being unable to build the bridge that connected us to our Aboriginal neighbors after ending the Indian Lore program in 1971. During our time at camp, we are merely stewards of the land, the environment, and the program. We reflect the time in which we are living, and as stewards of change, camp evolves.
Like me, Punch is one of the ones whose heart remains hanging somewhere in the middle of the dining hall. It never leaves. Tuck, Linda Keep, now Macintosh, fought for the rights of girls to go to camp. And with Sheila Gawley and Arliss McLennan, they braved the storms and the miserable weather at the end of August, and they proved that they were right.
better known as my camp nickname, Tuck. Well, it took a long time and a lot of pestering and annoying and demanding of Hal and Punch. But here we are, at long last. Stevens had a session once again for girls. I remember when I first set foot on the island in 1962, my very first girls' camp. We only got the last 2 weeks of August and nearly froze to death. We even had to wear ski jackets down for polar bear. I remember when I set foot on the island, it was amazing from the very first time. I loved everything about it, even polar bear. Hours of singing, a chance to take out canoes, great campfires, archery, I was hooked. On my last morning, I went to Lone Pine Point. Promised myself that I would do everything I could to make sure every girl would be able to have an experience at Stevens like this for all the years to come, just like the boys had had for 70 years. In many ways, the Y has been a second home for me. I was a kid at Old North Y and eventually became a leader for kids programs. But when I discovered camp, I knew I had to be part of it. Even though my family double-crossed me and moved to California, I managed, to Hal and Punch's regret, I'm sure, to make it back every summer, to annoy and pester them some more, and to keep my Winnipeg Y roots. And girls' camp was always my goal. I'm pretty pleased that they're using the concept of girls' camp and canoe tripping that I developed while I was at university in California. Wrote my thesis on it, actually. Okay, there's probably still a few of the old boys kicking around, complaining about girls in camp. But we did it. We persevered. It makes me so happy that from now on, women and girls will have the same life-altering experiences at Stevens that gave me my start. Our spirits, our minds, and our bodies now have a chance to build a million memories at Stevens. Mark Law followed me as camp director and continued on until the camp became co-ed. And my personal promise is still alive, to try and live by the camp motto, I'm third, every day.
And we must not forget that camp, like the Army, runs on its stomach. Some of the most memorable leaders at camp have been its cooks. Davy, Al Wild, and the inimitable Mac.
Hi, I'm Laurie Macintosh, or just plain Mac at camp. It's 1974 and year 4 as chief cook. What I love best about this place, next to cooking up dishes that they gulp down with gusto, is the singing. The boys are great, but the girls' camp at the end of August are absolutely fantastic. They sing all day and they sing everywhere they go. And I'm especially pleased that they've even created something called the lasagna song. That's a real tribute, and it all makes up for those really hot days in the kitchen. Remember, the kitchen makes the camp go round.
This was another era. Jim Leggett was director from 77 to 79, was succeeded by Grant Platts. Some of the most profound changes occurred in camp at this era, both physically and in the actual makeup of camping at Stevens. Alas, we lost Jim in 1993.
I'm Grant Platts, camp director from 1980 to 86, which was my dream job. I've happily survived being a camper, voyager, CIT, and staff, and my very first year as director, the change to co-ed camping. The old boys grumbled and said it would never happen, but it did, and it's turned out to be a great success. Luckily, we had some great women leaders, led by Mark Law as program director and Nancy McGregor as head cook. I also experienced the building of Lount Lodge, Cleve's composting toilet system, a shower house, and a new water treatment system, all under the leadership of Burton. These years of new ventures and big changes turned out to be all-round developing experience for us all. Stevens has had a profound influence on my life. I'm fortunate to have stayed connected to the camp to this day through friendships and the camp alumni.
I'm Burton Morian. Most people don't realize how close we came to ending up in jail, building the Lot Lodge. We were tricked into cutting a set of logs. Steve Wright and I were there, among others, over on Hay Island. It turned out to be a seed reserve. So those logs disappeared. Then we finally got the blessing of the ministry and we got trees 40 miles south. And those are the ones we built with. I think the good Lord was with us and we managed to cut all the trees, get them back to camp. We had a little creative machinery to move logs and we built the lodge. 2 years work, I think we ended up with a pretty good result.
I'm glad it turned out so well. What with the noise of chainsaws from dawn to dusk and losing a big chunk of the campus, I have to admit that the project nearly drove us all nuts.
I'm Bruce Owen, and I think Mr. Graham Lount would be pretty pleased with what his donation created. Graham Lount is still involved. Burton's crew included myself, Bob Pickin, Bob Backhouse, Colin Ledger, Dave Wright, Pam McLean, Mitch Campbell, and Don Cochran, and a host of other folks who helped us out. Peeling logs, logging, cedar shakes, lumber, cinder blocks for the chimney, the list goes on. Burton worked as hard. Yeah, no kidding. But it was a great experience for me. I wouldn't have missed it for anything. And I would be remiss if I didn't recognize and give thanks again to the dozens of campers and staff alike who peeled logs, carried construction material, and put up with us. They are also honored as a crew.
Well, despite some risky moments and a lot of sweat, we're proud of what we accomplished. Truly, I think God was watching over our project and guiding it and keeping us safe. We should credit him as the ultimate architect and construction chief.
Trail became one of the strongest elements of camp. 2, 3, 4, and 6-week trips for both boys and girls became the norm. The latter proved to be the great training ground for counselors and staff. Trail also demonstrated the character-building rewards of that program.
I'm Kelly Pickin. My brother Bob and I are long dedicated Stevens people. I didn't realize how little I knew about life until my first 6-week trip. Every time I took out another one, I lived a new life, a deeper life. No experience has had such a profound effect on young men and women who challenge the wilderness of woods and water. We all grow in every way. It isn't just the physical challenges, which are great. It is the effect on you emotionally and, yes, even spiritually. You bond with the wilderness, you become one with your fellow travelers, you become friends in a way that changes your life. And it's Camp Stevens that has made it all come about. The spirit arises on the island with all the people who have paved the way. Every kid, boy or girl, who ventures out on trail enters an experience that teaches them about themselves and what it means to look after yourself and those around you. You find a deeper, more aware, more spiritual you, and I am blessed to have a chance to live it.
As an old-timer, I've come to think of the 80s, 90s, and 2000s as modern times. Succeeding directors from the 80s to the present, Bob Pickin, Ian Smith, Jason Bowers, Jen Sulkers, Marlene Penner, who we also lost a few years back, Leanna Shockley, and Steve Allen kept the traditions. Each created new features and adventures that gave thousands of boys and girls the chance to grow in spirit, mind, and body. And now Matt is carrying the torch. Sitting here in this great dining hall, overlooking a glorious vision of the lake, taking in Lount Lodge right behind us, it's easy to think of the history of camp in terms of buildings. I've even written a story about the history of camp On the 5 forested islands and a few tents, we now have this modern, fully equipped camp. Fleets of watercraft, a ropes course, climbing wall, and prospects of more development to come. The future is bright. We can even get lost in the beauty of this lake, its setting, and indeed the wilderness that is on our doorstep. But there is always more to camp.
Copeland Island drew us in so many ways in the 1990s and 2000s. We learned alongside our peers, laughed till we peed our pants, and made the best friends we could ever ask for. From singing our section songs to having deco dance parties, watching special moments in awe, and freaking out over the infamous ghost stories of Hill 60. A session at camp was always the highlight of our year. Superhero mass days, island swims, getting the food waste down, down, down so we can dance, dance, dance. ECDCICA, secret women ceremonies all helped craft amazing memories for us in this magical place. What an empowering experience for a teenager to learn to solo a canoe, cook over an open fire, and climb Raspberry Rock. We felt all so grown up being away from home.
The island developed a mystique somewhere between the summer of being a CIT and your first year on staff. How fantastic and kind of frightening that we were now actually running the place. Learning to comfort a homesick Junie, trying to motivate a senior to do polar bear, taught us many skills that shaped who we are today. Weekends off doing laundry, busting a move at the Milltown, and spending your whole $135 a week salary a night was a rite of passage. And yet, camp in our era was still much like the experience of all those who came before us. The kids, the island, looking at the stars from the swim dock. Fortunately, the important things never change.
By the way, that was Lisa and Mark. In case you haven't run into them all weekend. Since 1911, camp has been about kids. But the future of camp itself lies in their hands. No, it lies in their hearts and in their dreams.
Hi, I'm Spawn Chapter, and I have a fact for you. Camp Stevens is awesome! That's a fact, locked in stone. This year was my 4th year at camp, and every year has been better than the last. The whole experience, from the activities to the counselors, who are always by your side to give you tips and guide you. After my first year, I was already begging my parents to let me come back to camp again. There's always something new to do. People always ask me, so, what's your favorite thing about camp? To be honest, I don't know. There are so many things to like about camp, from canoeing, sailing, to the ropes course and the water trampoline. I could go on forever, but personally, I'm a canoe type of guy. I've been on trail 3 times so far, and I love it. And next year, I even want to go on a 2-week advanced canoe trip. And the stories make me want to do even more, maybe even one day the inspiring 6-week. Like Dylan, generations of my family have come to camp. From my 8-year-old cousin, who came to camp for his first time in the first session, to my grandfather, who went on a canoe trip many years ago. I hope I can keep coming back to camp like so many of you have done.
I'm Dylan Fisk, and this summer will be my 4th year as a camper at Stevens. I'm like Stepan. I really love this place. It's amazing that my family has been a part of Stevens for 4 generations, starting with my grandpa Hal, then both my mom Terry and my dad Bruce. Also my brother Wyatt and my sister Shay and me, and my cousin Caitlin too. We all have paddles to prove it. Everything about camp is great. The island, the lake, the big lodge, everything. The things we do are great too. Campfires, swimming, kayaking. I got to go sailing this year. It was scary but fun. And best of all are the friends I make and that are terrific leaders. They make it special. Someone asked me what I like best of all about camp, and that's really hard to answer because there's so much to like. But I think it's having something new to look forward to every year and hoping that someday maybe I'll be a counselor or even go on trail and be a tripper. I hope Camp Stevens will go on forever because I want to be a part of it.
We must never forget that Stevens has been built on the shoulders not of giants, but ordinary people like all of us here today. Men and women who believe that the camp experience will have a profound effect on how a youngster grows and develops, and how the young adults that give leadership grow and develop at the same time. Today we remembered a select few. I know that. But we remember and honor them, and they will be remembered and honored in the lives of those who were with them at camp. We honor them today for the part they played in Stevens as well. And each of you can list those names yourself. The idea of growing up in spirit, mind, and body still has validity today. It's why the YMCA, the YWCA still have that motto. But first and foremost, camp is about children. Boys and girls living and learning to cooperate and share with one another. Learning about life in a natural setting, acquiring skills and coming to understand the practical arts of loving the earth and their neighbor. And the young adults who work with them also grow to maturity and in their understanding of the same values. It's a win-win experience. It was in the 1930s that one of the longest traditions of camp was officially dubbed the Camp Hymn. And we're going to revive it with a couple of changes. And it was certainly a favorite at chapel, and it ended almost every single campfire for about 40 years. You want to share your copies, and I'll ask Mark to come up and give me a hand again as we sing it. Close your eyes again, one last time. Sit with me on the old front dock, jutting out into the front bay. It's a warm fall day in September. We swing our legs back and forth like many a junior camper has done, daydreaming of what has been and what may be to come here in our favorite place on earth. We watch little eddies swirl in the cribbing of the dock just below our feet. The bay itself is calm. Just a gentle breeze stirs the waters, but it has an edge to it, the promise of colder days to come. We're alone on Copeland Island, and the mind is free to roam, conjuring up sights and sounds and images that arise out of the times we have known this place. In your mind, see the faces of colleagues and campers who have shared camp with you. Listen. Can you hear the sounds of children's shouts and laughter in the breeze? Are you with me? I'm home. I come here as often as I wish, just by closing my eyes and letting the years fall away. Try it yourself. You never really leave Stevens, and neither do my friends who shared it with me now more than 50 years ago. I see them striding along with the kids, and along with them as they come across the campus, I see a figure who was our friend in the days that we were at camp, the carpenter of Nazareth. His words still undergird everything that camp is about. Love one another. Our motto is I'm third. Whatever way you know it, chapel and camp itself was and is and always will be about building a better world, one kid at a time. More than 2,000 years ago, a man named Micah spoke these words. This is what is asked of you in life, only this, that you act justly, that you love with tenderness, and that you walk humbly with your God. In whatever way you conceive of the spirit of Stevens, let us go to love one another and abide in peace.